No one remembered who built the first warning system. That was the problem. Across the galaxy, ancient machines woke at the same moment. They had slept longer than most civilizations had existed. Their metal was older than recorded history, their code written in logic no modern mind fully understood. Yet now, one by one, they came alive. Stars dimmed as power was pulled from space itself. Dead relays began to transmit. Weapons that had never fired turned toward the dark edges of the universe. And every system sent the same alert. Status: Elders, active. Panic spread faster than light. On the capital world of the Galactic Council, alarms echoed through halls carved from crystal and stone. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered in an emergency session. Some breathed smoke. Some glowed. Some had ruled their people for 10,000 years. All of them were afraid. The elders spoken of in myth were not rulers or kings. They were something older. Builders. Watchers. The ones said to have shaped the early galaxy and then vanished without explanation. Most believed they were only stories. Until now. Screens flared to life around the chamber. Ancient star maps rewrote themselves in real time. Borders shifted. Safe zones vanished. Entire regions of space were marked with a single symbol. Unknown, untranslated, and deeply unsettling. One by one, council members spoke. This technology predates us. Our archives do not go back that far. These systems were not made to defend against us, but against something else. Silence followed that thought. Then a voice from the outer delegations broke it, sharp and dismissive. Could this be the work of humans? Several beings turned, confused. Humans, one elder asked. The young species from the Soul region? Yes, the voice replied. They have expanded quickly. Perhaps they uncovered old machines they do not understand. A ripple of amusement passed through the chamber. Humans were newcomers. Barely a few thousand years of spaceflight. Their ships were functional but inelegant. Their technology relied on brute force and redundancy, not the refined systems of older empires. They were ambitious, clever, loud, but ancient. No, humans are not capable of this. The council speaker said calmly. Their kind was still fighting over single worlds when these systems were built. The matter was dismissed. Attention returned to the real fear, the edge of the galaxy, where sensors now detected movement. Something vast shifted in the dark between stars. Something that bent gravity and ignored distance. Then, without warning, a signal cut through every channel. Not a broadcast, not a message, a summons. The signal did not use modern language. It was layered, mathematical, emotional. Translation systems struggled, failed, then slowly adapted. Words formed at last. Cycle breach detected. Containment failing. Caretakers required. The chamber went silent. Caretakers. That word appeared only once in forbidden archives. It referred to a race that did not rule the galaxy, but maintained it. A species that chose duty over dominance. A myth. The signal continued. Elders online. Returning to assigned sectors. Coordinates followed. Thousands of them. As the data spread across the chamber, fear turned into confusion. The coordinates were not ancient capitals, not lost empires, not sacred worlds. They were ordinary systems, trade routes, colony zones, quiet stars. And then the pattern became clear. Nearly all of them surrounded one region of space. Human space. A junior analyst spoke before thinking, voice shaking. Speaker, the origin point of the primary signal. The speaker turned slowly. It's coming from Sol. Shock rippled through the council. Some stood. Others recoiled. Several demanded rechecks. Sol was humanity's home system. Young. Overpopulated. Loud with radio noise and civilian traffic. It could not be the source. Yet the data did not change. At the edge of that same system, something appeared on long-range sensors. Not a ship. Not a station. A structure. It was massive, dark, and unfinished in appearance, like a weapon that did not need beauty. It unfolded from folded space itself, piece by piece, as if answering a call older than memory. Human traffic around it did not panic. They cleared lanes. They made room. The structure powered up, and this time, the signal was clear. Spoken. Calm. Almost tired. We were hoping this cycle would last longer. Every translator rendered the next words perfectly. Notify the galaxy. The elders have returned. And for the first time since joining the stars, humanity did not look young at all. The Galactic Council did not panic at first. They argued. Emergency sessions stretched into cycles of debate as leaders tried to force the universe back into something familiar. Committees were formed. Data was challenged. Definitions were questioned. Elders, they decided, did not simply appear. Ancient powers did not hide inside young civilizations. And humans, of all species, could not be what the signal claimed. So the council chose the safest answer. Observation without respect. They would watch humanity, not listen to it. Dozens of long-range observers were dispatched to Sol and its surrounding systems. Not warships. Those would have been an admission of fear, but silent recorders and diplomatic scouts. Their orders were clear. Confirm human ignorance, find the stolen technology, and prepare sanctions if necessary. The observers expected chaos. They expected human governments scrambling, fleets forming in panic, signals begging for answers. They found none of that. Earth turned slowly beneath its clouds, unchanged. Orbital traffic moved with calm precision. Civilian ships followed quiet reroutes, as if they had practiced this exact moment before. No alarms echoed across human channels. No emergency declarations flooded the void. Instead, something stranger filled the airwaves. Silence. Not the absence of communication, but controlled quiet. Human military channels were sealed behind encryption so deep that alien AIs could not even define its structure. Attempts to penetrate it returned errors that made no logical sense, as if the code itself refused to be examined. One observer, an intelligence construct older than most stars in its empire, attempted a full-spectrum analysis. It failed, not because the encryption was aggressive, but because I was patient. The construct reported an unsettling conclusion. Human security systems were not designed to repel attacks. They were designed to outlast it. On Earth, human leaders did not gather in grand chambers or broadcast speeches to the stars. They met in small rooms. Underground. Shielded. Analog. They spoke softly. Is it early? One asked. Earlier than we hoped, another replied. But not unexpected. That phrase repeated across human networks. Not unexpected. The observers flagged it as troubling. Human fleets did not mobilize in visible force. Instead, old ships, some officially decommissioned centuries ago, slipped from storage docks and vanished into deep space. Their transponders remained silent. Their destinations were not logged. Even more unsettling were the movements of human civilians. Entire colonies began quiet evacuations. Not rushed. Not chaotic. Families packed essentials. Archives were copied. Cultural records were transmitted to unknown locations. No pleas for help were sent. No warnings issued. It looked less like fear and more like procedure. One observer focused on human historical archives, expecting to find theft, evidence of stolen alien technology, proof that humanity had uncovered relics they did not understand. Instead, it found walls. Human history beyond a certain point was fragmented on purpose. Entire eras were marked only by vague labels. The Long Watch. The Quiet Centuries. Post-sealing recovery. There were no details. Only memorials. Names carved into databases without explanation. Star systems listed as closed. Locations removed from navigation charts not by accident, but by unanimous agreement across every human faction. The observer reported rising uncertainty. The council ignored it. They are hiding ignorance, one elder declared. Fear makes young species secretive. But then the ancient systems responded. Across the galaxy, defense grids older than recorded history began shifting orientation. Massive constructs that no one claimed ownership of because no one had ever controlled them, realigned with perfect synchronization. They did not respond to council commands. They did not answer alien authentication codes. But when a human exploration vessel passed within range of one such construct, the ancient machine adjusted its orbit to escort it. No weapons charged. No threats issued. It was protective. A single alien captain, brave or foolish, attempted to interface directly with one of the ancient systems. He transmitted a universal authority code, one that had worked on every known relic before. The response came instantly. Access denied role. Observer-only status. Non-caretaker. The captain demanded clarification. The system did not reply. Moments later, a human science ship entered the region. Its hull was plain, its markings civilian. It transmitted a simple handshake signal. Old, inefficient, almost crude. The ancient construct responded. It powered down its weapons. It adjusted shields to human frequency. It opened a maintenance corridor that had been sealed for millennia. The observers recorded everything. The footage spread through the council chamber like poison. Still, denial clung tightly. They built a key, one leader insisted. A clever trick. Nothing more. Then the dark beyond the galaxy moved again. The thing awakening there no longer hid its presence. Entire constellations bent as if pulled by invisible claws. Probes vanished. Long-range sensors screamed with impossible readings. Ancient warning beacons, ones the council did not even know existed, began transmitting automatically. Their message was simple. Containment failure imminent. The council demanded answers. For the first time, humanity responded. Not with a speech, with a message routed through every ancient system at once. It was not encrypted. It was not dramatic. It was tiring. All non-human forces are advised to withdraw from marked sectors. Do not pursue the approaching entity. Do not interfere with containment protocols. The council bristled at the tone. Advised? By a young species? They demanded justification. Authority. Proof. The reply came seconds later, accompanied by data so old some systems struggled to display it. Star charts from before the current galactic layout. Records of wars no species remembered fighting. Energy signatures that matched the thing now approaching. At the center of the data was a single repeated note. Previous cycle termination prevented. And then, something no one expected. A human message, not to the council, but to the observers still hidden near Earth. You can keep watching, the human voice said calmly. We won't stop you. A pause. But understand this. If you see us move openly, it means we are out of time. The transmission ended. Moments later, the observers detected something buried deep beneath Earth's surface. Not a weapon. A vault. It was planetary in scale, wrapped in layers of shielding older than human civilization itself. Its power signature spiked briefly, then stabilized, like a heartbeat returning after a long sleep. Similar readings appeared across human space. On moons. Inside stars. Between dimensions where no modern ship could safely travel. Each one answered the same signal. Elder Protocol, stand by. The council chamber fell silent. Not because of fear, but because, for the first time, the galaxy was forced to ask a question it had never considered before. What if humanity was never catching up? What if they had been slowing down on purpose? Far beyond the rim, the ancient enemy fully awakened. And it remembered the last species that had stopped it. It did not remember their name, only their method. And it began to flee, not from the galaxy, but from Earth. The galaxy did not sleep after that. Across thousands of worlds, leaders stared at star maps that no longer felt safe. Trade lanes emptied. Pilgrimage routes went dark. Entire species pulled fleets back toward their core systems, not to prepare for war, but to hide. Because the thing beyond the rim was no longer advancing. It was maneuvering. Ancient civilizations had learned long ago that there was only one reason a predator that size ever changed course. Fear. The Galactic Council ordered a full archival purge reversal. Every sealed record, every forbidden database, every half-destroyed memory vault was forced open. Laws written at the founding of empires were broken in a single cycle. If the elders were real, then the truth had been buried for a reason. What emerged was not history. It was a crime scene. The oldest records did not speak of conquest or golden ages. They spoke of loss, of stars that vanished from charts without explanation, of civilizations that collapsed without enemy fleets or plagues. The whole species is simply ended. No ruins, no debris, no survivors, just empty space where something had once lived. At first, the Council assumed these were natural disasters. Supernova chains, dimensional collapse, early universe instability. But then the pattern appeared. Every vanished system sat along invisible lines, arcs spanning the galaxy, converging toward containment zones now lighting up again. The same zones the human warnings had marked. One archivist, a being whose species had recorded time for over 1,000,000 years, finally spoke the thought no one wanted to voice. These are not dead worlds, it said slowly. They are graves. The deeper the archives went, the worse it became. Ancient battle records surfaced, fragmented, distorted by time, clearly edited. Entire conflicts were reduced to single lines. Threat neutralized. Containment is successful. Cycle preserved. No names. No victors. No honors. Only numbers. The cost columns were the most disturbing. Not fleet losses. Not casualty counts. But stars. Sacrificed. Collapsed on purpose. To stop something from spreading. The Council searched desperately for the species responsible. The builders of the weapons. The commanders of such impossible wars. Every trail ended the same way. A blank. Not erased by time, but deliberately removed. Except for one thing. A symbol. It appeared in the margins of records written by dozens of unrelated civilizations. Scratched into asteroid vaults. Hidden inside quantum memory locks. A simple mark. Angular. Functional. Humans. The Council recoiled. That symbol predates their species, someone protested. Another voice replied, barely audible. Or their species predates us. Panic finally reached human space. Not from humans. From everyone else. Alien fleets began repositioning near Sol, not to attack, but to observe more closely. Diplomatic channels flooded Earth with demands, questions, accusations. Humanity answered none of them. Instead, something unprecedented happened. Human historians, long ignored, dismissed as sentimental archivists of a short-lived species, were granted unrestricted access to council chambers. They did not arrive with speeches. They arrived with keys. One by one, ancient vaults responded to human genetic markers. Seals disengaged that had resisted every other attempt for tens of thousands of years. Inside were not weapons. They were records. Clear ones. Unedited. The first recording showed a galaxy that did not resemble the current one. Fewer stars. Wider voids. A universe still young and unstable. And in it, humans. Not modern humans. Older. Taller. Changed. But unmistakable. They did not rule vast empires. Their territory was small, tightly controlled. Their ships were few, but everywhere at once. They were not expanding. They were watching. The recording shifted. Something tore through space. A wound that did not heal. A presence that warped reality around it. Entire systems screamed and went silent. The thing beyond the rim. Younger then. Hungrier. The footage cut, but not before showing humanity's response. They did not charge it. They did not try to destroy it. They contained it. By collapsing stars. By sealing dimensions. By sacrificing colonies without hesitation. The human historian watching the footage did not flinch. She simply said, "This was before we learned mercy." The council demanded explanation. The historian turned to them, eyes tired. "We were young once too," she said. But the universe was younger. And far more dangerous. Another record activated. It showed humanity debating its own extinction. Not from defeat. From choice. They had realized something terrible. Every time they intervened openly, younger species either worshipped them or tried to become them. Both paths led to disaster. So humanity made a decision no other species ever had. They would step back. They would hide their strength. Erase their history. Limit their technology. Let others rise, fail, learn. And when the ancient enemy was sealed beyond the rim, humanity stayed behind, not as rulers, but as jailers. The galaxy had flourished in the silence that followed. Empires rose, fell, rose again, and humans became young. The historian closed the archive. "We did not disappear," she said. "We downsized." The council sat in stunned silence. Then a sensor alert cut through the chamber. The thing beyond the rim had changed direction again. It was no longer fleeing. It was probing. Small fragments of its mass broke away, slipping through weak points in space-time. They appeared inside abandoned systems, the same grave systems marked in the archives. Where they touched, reality decayed. Stars dimmed unnaturally. Planets cracked without impact. Life simply unraveled. Alien fleets rushed to respond. They failed. Weapons passed through the fragments as if through smoke. Shields collapsed. Crews went mad as physics betrayed them. Human ships did not engage. They observed. Coldly. Precisely. Then, for the first time, a human military transmission leaked into open channels. Not a warning. An assessment. Fragment classification confirmed. A human voice said. Early stage incursion. A pause. Containment threshold not yet breached. Alien commanders demanded action. "Why are you not helping?" one shouted. "You said you were caretakers." The reply came instantly. We are, the humans said. That's why we're not panicking. Another pause, longer this time. You're seeing symptoms, the human continued. We're watching the disease. The fragments were allowed to burn themselves out, collapsed by forces no alien sensor could detect, folded back into nothing by subtle manipulations of gravity and time. When it was over, the system was gone, reduced to empty space. Another grave. The council finally understood the scale of what humanity had been doing. Every vanished system, every lost civilization, every mysterious disaster. Humanity had been choosing where the universe was allowed to survive. And now, the enemy was testing them again. A new signal echoed from the ancient structures awakening across human space. Not standby. No warning. A single phrase repeated like a heartbeat. Elder Protocol, Phase 1 initiated. The historian whispered, almost to herself. It's learning. Far beyond the rim, the ancient enemy shifted its form. It had remembered something important. Not fear, not defeat, but the price humanity was willing to pay. And it decided to raise the cost. Phase 1 did not look like war. That was the second mistake. Across the galaxy, commanders waited for the obvious signs. Mass fleet movement, weapons charging, stars turning into fire. They expected humanity to finally reveal a hidden armada and meet the ancient enemy head-on. Instead, space became quiet. Too quiet. Human communication traffic dropped to near zero. Not jammed. Not destroyed. Simply closed. Even internal civilian networks thinned, as if humanity itself had taken a slow, steady breath and decided not to exhale yet. The Galactic Council interpreted the silence as hesitation. Phase 1 is posturing, one admiral declared. They are still deciding how to respond. Humanity did not correct them. What no one noticed at first were the small changes. Navigation beacons began drifting by fractions of a degree. Harmless, it seemed. But over light years, those fractions added up. Trade routes subtly bent away from certain regions. Civilian traffic followed updated maps, without question. Behind the scenes, entire sections of the galaxy were being gently emptied. Not evacuated. Cleared. In deep space, human command vessels activated. Ships that had never appeared in public registries. They did not look impressive. No massive guns. No intimidating silhouettes. Just dense, compact hulls layered with systems that drank energy instead of radiating it. They did not move fast. They moved exactly when needed. At the same time, ancient constructs, those once dismissed relics scattered across the galaxy, began repositioning. Not forming lines. Not defensive walls. They took up points that only human models seemed to understand. Alien analysts tried to predict the pattern. They failed. Because it was not a battle formation. It was a lock. The ancient enemy noticed first. At the edge of the galaxy, its vast presence shifted. The probing fragments it had sent before were no longer enough. It pushed forward with greater mass, tearing open space in slow, deliberate wounds. This time, it did not flee from Earth. It advanced around it. Human sensors tracked the movement instantly. Predictions updated. Probabilities collapsed into certainty. Phase 2 was approaching. Human commanders did not announce it. They simply stopped pretending. Across multiple systems, human ships dropped civilian transponders and revealed layered hulls beneath. Weapons unfolded, not glowing, not dramatic, but brutally efficient. Fields of compressed gravity hummed into alignment. Alien fleets nearby recoiled. This is it, Council observers whispered. The reveal. They were wrong. The human fleets did not engage the enemy. They turned their weapons outward, toward the galaxy itself. Before panic could spread, a human transmission cut through every channel. Civilian, military, diplomatic. It was calm, steady, and unmistakably authoritative. Attention all non-human vessels, the voice said. You are now inside a containment operation. A pause, just long enough to be felt. You will follow human instructions exactly, or you will be removed from the theater. Removed. Not destroyed. Not attacked. The implication chilled even the most seasoned commanders. Several alien admirals refused outright. Their fleets moved to engage the incoming fragments, eager to prove themselves. Human ships responded, not with fire, but with control. Space twisted. Alien vessels found their engines unresponsive. Weapons locked in safe mode. Navigation systems rewrote themselves in real time, forcing fleets into holding patterns they could not break. No damage. No casualties. Just absolute dominance. One alien commander screamed over open comms. "You can't do this. This is an act of war." The human reply was immediate. "No," the voice said. "This is maintenance." Then Phase 2 began. The ancient enemy pushed a major mass through the rim. Reality buckled as its presence distorted causality itself. Stars near the breach aged millions of years and seconds. Light bent backward. Physics hesitated. Human ships moved at last. They did not rush the enemy. They framed it. Gravitational anchors deployed, devices so subtle they barely registered. They did not pull. They defined boundaries. Space itself was told where it could exist. The enemy struck one. The anchor absorbed the impact and recorded it. Human systems adjusted. Learning confirmed. A human analyst said quietly. The enemy lashed out again, harder. This time, the response came. A human vessel burned itself out, collapsing into a singularity on command. The resulting gravity wave folded the enemy's mass inward, not damaging it, but compressing it, forcing it into a narrower shape. Alien observers stared in horror. That ship just committed suicide. A human officer corrected them. "No," she said. "It completed its assignment." The crew had evacuated hours earlier. Phase 3. The galaxy finally understood that humanity was not fighting to win. They were fighting to limit damage. As the enemy strained against the containment field, fragments broke off, violent, unstable pieces that would have devastated entire sectors if left unchecked. Human ships intercepted them one by one, not with weapons, with burdens. Each fragment was drawn into a human-controlled zone. Empty systems, dead stars, ancient graves already marked long ago. When the fragment destabilized, the system went with it. Sacrificed. Again, alien leaders begged humanity to stop. Those systems could be saved. Humanity did not respond, because the decision had been made centuries earlier. In one system, an alien fleet ignored orders and rushed to protect a fragment. They poured fire into it, shields blazing, determined to be heroes. The fragment reacted. Reality collapsed around them. Human ships moved instantly, not to save the fragment, but to save what remained. They sealed the space. The alien fleet vanished. When the distortion cleared, only silence remained. A human commander finally spoke to the council directly. "We warned you," she said. "This is not a war you participate in. This is a process you survive." Phase 4 arrived without announcement. The ancient enemy changed tactics. It stopped attacking the containment. Instead, it spoke, not with words, with memory. Visions flooded sensitive minds across the galaxy. Promises, knowledge, power. It showed civilizations what they could become if they helped it break free. Some listened. A breakaway faction attempted sabotage, attacking human anchors, disrupting evacuation corridors, trying to force humanity's hand. Humanity responded instantly and without mercy. Saboteur ships were disabled mid-jump, frozen in space-time. Crews were extracted unharmed. The ships were erased from existence, folded into nothing as if they had never been built. No trial, no speeches, just removal. The message was clear. This was no longer about politics. It was about survival. By the end of the cycle, the galaxy looked different. Borders redrawn, systems gone, fleets humbled, myths shattered. And at the center of it all, humanity worked with grim focus. Not angry, not proud, just tired. A junior human officer looked at the tactical display and whispered, "It's pushing harder." Her commander nodded. "It always does. Can we hold?" The commander did not answer immediately. Instead, she watched the enemy strain against boundaries older than most stars. She watched human ships quietly take their places, knowing exactly which ones would not return. Then she spoke. "Yes," she said. "We can hold on." A pause. But Phase 5 is going to hurt. Far beyond the rim, the ancient enemy finally understood something it had forgotten. The humans were not reacting anymore. They were executing a plan written before the galaxy had names. And for the first time since it was sealed away, the enemy realized it was not being fought. It was being managed. And that terrified it. Phase 5 began with a human funeral. No enemy attack marked it. No alarms rang. No stars died. On Earth, under a gray sky, a small group of humans stood in silence around a simple monument. There were no cameras, No broadcasts, no flags. Just names, thousands of them, etched into dark stone. They were not soldiers lost in battle. They were deciders. The ones who had chosen which systems would die so others could live. A young officer finally broke the silence. "Why now?" she asked quietly. "Why a funeral in the middle of this?" An older man, his uniform worn smooth by decades of use, answered without looking at her. "Because Phase 5 isn't about fighting," he said. "It's about remembering what it costs." Across human space, similar ceremonies took place. On colonies, on ships, in stations hidden between stars. Humanity paused, not out of weakness, but discipline. Because Phase 5 required something no weapon could provide. Consent. Deep beneath Earth's surface, the planetary vault fully opened for the first time in recorded history. Layers of shielding peeled back like the petals of a steel flower, revealing chambers that predated modern humanity. Inside were not machines. Inside were people. They were human, but altered. Longevity extended, minds expanded, memories preserved across generations. They were the living continuation of the first caretakers. The elders. They did not rule. They did not command fleets. They remembered. When the vault opened, the elders awoke slowly, as if returning from a dream that had lasted thousands of years. Their eyes reflected star maps no one else could see. One of them spoke, voice steady but heavy. "So," she said, "it's back." Human command confirmed the situation. The enemy had adapted faster than expected. It was no longer just testing containment, it was mirroring it, learning how to anchor itself to reality the same way humanity did. If it succeeded, containment would become impossible. Phase 5 existed for only one reason: to prevent that learning from finishing. The elders gathered in a chamber with no displays, no holograms, no external feeds. Everything they needed was already in their minds. They began to argue, not emotionally, mathematically. They discussed probabilities measured in extinction percentages. They weighed the survival of billions against the erasure of cultures that had never known humanity's protection. And then they reached the conclusion humanity had feared for centuries. The enemy could not be permanently contained again, not without a lock, a living one. The elders explained the truth to human command. The ancient enemy was not just sealed before, it was bound, anchored to a consciousness capable of understanding it, predicting it, limiting it from within. Last time, that anchor had been an entire civilization. The first humanity. They had burned themselves down to become a prisoner. This time, humanity no longer had the numbers or the ignorance to survive that sacrifice unchanged. Phase 5 required volunteers. Not soldiers, not heroes, anchors. Humans who would merge their consciousness with the containment network, linking mind to machine, machine to space-time. They would feel the enemy push. They would resist it directly, and they would never come back. The announcement was not broadcast to the galaxy. It was sent only to humans. The response was immediate. Too immediate. Millions volunteered in the first hour. Scientists, artists, engineers, farmers, parents, elderly citizens who remembered nothing of the First War but felt its echo in their bones. Human command rejected most of them. They needed minds shaped a certain way, stable, resilient, capable of holding contradictions without breaking. The selection process was brutal. Those chosen were told the truth. You will not die quickly. You will not be unconscious. You will feel centuries pass. And when it ends, there will be nothing left to remember you but names on stone. No one who was selected refused. When alien intelligence finally detected Phase 5, they misunderstood it completely. Human fleets began pulling back from the containment perimeter. Ancient constructs powered down. Anchors disengaged one by one. The enemy surged forward. Panic erupted across the council. Humanity is retreating. They're abandoning the galaxy. This is a betrayal. No human responded. Instead, in deep space, massive structures unfolded. Vast rings of impossible geometry, older than stars, long hidden within dead systems. They had never been weapons. They were interfaces. The anchors took their places. As each human consciousness merged with the system, the containment field changed. It stopped behaving like a wall. It became a conversation. The enemy struck. And for the first time, it was answered from within. Alien sensors went wild. Energy readings flattened, then spiked, then vanished. The enemy's movement slowed. not because it was restrained, but because it was being understood. The elders watched in silence. One of them whispered, "They're doing better than we did." The cost became visible almost immediately. Human anchors began to fail. Not physically, emotionally. Minds overloaded by the sheer scale of what they were holding. Entire lifetimes compressed into seconds. Memories burned away to make room for calculations older than the universe. One anchor screamed, not aloud, but across the network. Human command cut the feed. They did not need to hear it to know. The enemy reacted with something like rage. It tried to break free not by force, but by corruption. It pushed thoughts, images, possibilities into the anchor's minds. Promises. You could rule this galaxy. You could be remembered forever. You could end the suffering instead of managing it. The anchors did not answer. They held. But holding was not enough. Phase 5 revealed the final truth humanity had avoided for generations. The enemy could be contained, but only as long as the anchors existed. This was not a solution. It was a postponement. The elders gathered again. "We can stabilize this for a time," one said. "Centuries, perhaps." And then, another asked. Silence. Human command demanded alternatives. There were none. At last, the oldest elder spoke. "Then we do what we have always done," he said. "We make time, and we trust the next cycle to find a better answer." The galaxy watched as human systems dimmed, not from power loss, but redirection. Entire stars were rerouted to feed the containment network. Whole regions went dark. Life continued. Barely. The enemy slowed. Its movements became predictable again. Phase 5 succeeded. But the price was written into the fabric of reality. Humanity was no longer just watching the galaxy. They were holding it together with their minds. In the council chamber, an alien leader finally asked the question that should have been asked from the beginning. "If this is what you've always done," he said quietly, "why didn't you tell us?" A human representative looked at him with tired eyes. "Because," she said, "if you had known, you would have asked us to stop." And far beyond the rim, bound and burning against invisible limits, the ancient enemy realized something new. The humans were no longer just its jailers. They were becoming its chains. And chains, no matter how strong, eventually break. Phase 6 did not begin with orders. It began with failure. One anchor went silent. There was no explosion, no warning spike. One moment, a human mind was holding back a force older than stars, and the next, it was simply gone. The containment field shuddered. Across the galaxy, ancient constructs screamed for the first time in recorded history. Not alarms, pain. The enemy surged against the gap left behind, pressing into reality like a hand through thin ice. Human command reacted instantly. Stabilize the lattice. Reroute star feed. Compensate with secondary anchors. The system obeyed, but slower than before. Because the truth humanity had been avoiding was now unavoidable. The anchors were burning out faster than predicted. The enemy was adapting not just to the technology, but to the humans themselves. It was learning how they thought, how they chose, how they sacrificed. It was learning how to wait. The elders convened again, urgently sharpening minds that had once debated in centuries. "We are approaching cascade failure," one said flatly. "If 3 more anchors drop, Phase 5 collapses. And if Phase 5 collapses," another replied, "the galaxy follows." There was no argument, only arithmetic. Human command presented the final contingency. Phase 6. It had never been tested, not even in simulations. It existed only as a theory buried beneath layers of ethical locks and psychological barriers. Because Phase 6 was not containment. It was a conclusion. The ancient enemy could not be destroyed, not fully, but it could be rendered irrelevant, stripped of the very thing that made it dangerous. Choice. Phase 6 required a human presence inside the enemy itself, not as an anchor, not as a jailer, but as a guide. A consciousness capable of redirecting the enemy's vast awareness inward, collapsing it into a closed loop of self-observation. A prison made of its own thoughts. The cost was absolute. The human who entered would not survive as an individual. Their identity would dissolve, spread thin across an infinite mind until nothing recognizable remained. They would not be remembered. They would not even know they had existed. Human command fell silent after presenting the option. No one volunteered. Because this time, volunteering meant something different. This was not a sacrifice for others. This was erased. Then one of the anchors, already linked, already burning, sent a message through channels that should not have allowed it. A single sentence. Use me. Human command refused immediately. You are already failing, the commander said. Your cognitive integrity. I know, the anchor replied calmly. That's why it has to be now. I'm already inside its patterns. The elders reviewed the data. The anchor was right. His mind had synchronized unusually well with the enemy's structure. Where others resisted, he understood. Not sympathy, not a weakness. Pattern recognition. He could step deeper. Human command argued. Delayed. Searched for alternatives. The anchor waited. As another anchor went silent. The galaxy felt it this time. Stars flickered. Hyperlanes destabilized. Civilizations screamed as physics stuttered. The council begged humanity to act. Do something, they demanded. Anything. Humanity had already decided. The anchor's final transmission was not dramatic. Tell my daughter, he said, voice steady, that I finished my work. Then Phase 6 began. The containment field opened, not outward, but inward. A controlled breach allowed the anchor's consciousness to fall into the enemy's core awareness. Alien sensors went blind instantly. Human sensors barely held. Inside, there was no battle. There was no environment. Only scale. The enemy's mind was vast beyond comprehension, a storm of probability, hunger, and ancient instinct. It did not think in words or images. It thought of outcomes. The human mind entered it like a drop of ink in an ocean. And yet, I noticed. The enemy noticed focus. A point of stillness. A pattern that did not seek to consume or escape. The human consciousness did not attack. It asked a question, not in language, in logic. What happens if you stop expanding? The enemy recoiled, not in fear, but confusion. Expansion was its nature, its purpose, its survival. The human mind showed it something else. Cycles. The rise and fall of stars. The way the universe reset itself naturally, without hunger or intent. The way humanity had learned to endure by accepting limits. The enemy pushed back. It showed human infinite growth, endless dominance. A universe shaped entirely to one will. The human responded with something smaller. A memory. A child looking at stars. A civilization choosing restraint. A species stepping back so others could exist. The enemy hesitated. That hesitation rippled outward. For the first time, the containment field did not strain. It relaxed. Outside, human systems stabilized. Anchors stopped burning out. Energy flows smoothed into predictable patterns. Alien observers stared in disbelief. What's happening? One whispered. A human analyst answered softly. He's teaching it. The enemy tried one last time to break free. It showed the human mind the future. Countless galaxies consumed, order imposed, chaos eliminated. The human showed it something else. Silence. The kind that comes after work is done. After purpose is fulfilled. After that there is nothing left to prove. The enemy collapsed inward. Not destroyed. Not imprisoned. Concluded. Its vast awareness folded into itself, looping endlessly through its own perceptions, unable to act, unable to reach outward again. A closed system. Phase 6 succeeded. The cost arrived moments later. The anchor's signal faded, not abruptly, but gently, like a thought drifting away. Human command logged the end time. No name was attached, only a designation. Final interface, offline. The galaxy held its breath. Then reality stabilized completely. Hyperlanes reformed. Stars returned to expected brightness. Ancient constructs powered down one by one, their purpose fulfilled. Human anchors disconnected safely. Those who survived collapsed into medical care, minds scarred but intact. The elders bowed their heads. It's over, one said. Humanity did not celebrate. There were no cheers. No victory declarations. Only quiet. The Galactic Council reconvened in silence, no longer towering over humanity, no longer dismissive. One representative finally spoke. You saved us, they said. All of us. A human commander replied without pride. We finished our duty. And what will you do now? The alien asked. The human looked at the stars. What we always do, she said. We step back. As human fleets withdrew, ancient systems shut down, returning to sleep. The galaxy was left intact, but changed, because now it knew the truth. Humanity was not the youngest species among the stars. They were the ones who stayed behind when the universe was dangerous. The ones who paid the price no one else knew existed. The ones who ended wars no one remembered fighting. And somewhere beyond perception, in a prison made of its own thoughts, an ancient enemy turned endlessly inward, guided forever by a human idea it could never escape. Enough. The galaxy did not celebrate. That surprised everyone. For thousands of cycles, victory had always meant noise, signals flooding space, worlds lighting up with triumph, leaders claiming credit before the echoes of battle faded. Entire cultures were built around the idea that survival demanded proof. But when Phase 6 ended, there was only silence. Not the fearful kind, not the empty kind, the settled kind. Hyperlanes stabilized fully within days. Star output returned to predicted ranges. The ancient constructs, those impossible machines that had once defined borders and decided fate, powered down and folded themselves back into invisibility. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy was not under threat, and no one knew what to do with that. The Galactic Council reconvened, but the chamber felt smaller now. The same crystal walls, the same ancient seats, but the presence that had once filled the room with authority was gone. They had watched humanity in something older than civilization. Quietly, without asking permission, without demanding reward. Reports poured in from across known space. Systems once thought unstable were suddenly safe. Regions long avoided due to unexplained disappearances became navigable again, though many were left untouched out of respect, or fear, or both. The graves remained. Humanity did not reopen them. They never would. Alien diplomats requested immediate summits with Earth. Some arrived with apologies. Others offer alliances, shared governance, even proposals to place humanity permanently at the head of the Council. Every offer was declined. Firmly, politely, without hesitation. A senior council member finally confronted a human representative directly. "You have the power to shape the galaxy," they said. "You already do. Why refuse the authority that comes with it?" The human did not answer immediately. She looked tired, older than her years. "Because authority was never the point," she said. Responsibility was. Human fleets continued to withdraw, not in retreat, but completion. Ships vanished into maintenance docks hidden in deep space. Others were dismantled entirely. Their materials returned to stars or sealed away. The ancient interfaces were shut down under Elder supervision. Each one required a human presence to deactivate, a final handshake between mind and machine. As they powered down, something unexpected happened. The galaxy felt smaller, not diminished, just less guarded. Species that had unknowingly lived under humanity's protection for millennia suddenly realized what that protection had cost. Entire histories were re-examined. Ancient myths were reinterpreted. Natural disasters gained new context. Some civilizations struggled with the truth. A few reacted with anger. "You let our worlds burn," one ambassador accused. "You decided who lived and died." The human response was calm. "Yes," the elders said, "and we will live with that forever." The accusation did not continue, because there was no denial to argue against. Across human space, the anchors who had survived Phase 5 began to recover. Medical technology repaired bodies easily enough, but minds were slower to heal. They dreamed of gravity without direction, of thoughts that were not their own, of pressure that never stopped pushing. Human society did not treat them as heroes. It treated them as wounded. They were given space, time, silence. Those who asked about the final interface, the human who had entered the enemy and never returned, were given no details. Only a name, spoken softly, recorded nowhere public. The elders convened one final time. There are fewer of them now. Some had burned out guiding Phase 6. Others had simply let go. Their long duty complete, they chose rest over continuation. The remaining elders made a decision that surprised even human command. They would not wake replacements. The chain of memory that had stretched back to the first cycle would end here. Humanity would no longer rely on living reminders of ancient fear. Instead, they would leave records, clear ones, honest ones, not warnings carved in myth, but explanations written in simple language. If the universe ever faced such a threat again, the next caretakers, human or otherwise, would not have to guess. They would know. The elders sealed the final vault. Not locked, just closed. In the council chamber, a resolution was passed unanimously. Humanity was formally recognized as the elders of the cycle. The human delegation did not attend the vote. When informed later, their response was brief. We decline the title. Confusion rippled through the council. You cannot refuse what you already are, one member protested. A human envoy replied quietly. We can refuse what it turns us into. Time passed. Years. Then decades. The galaxy adapted. Trade resumed. Borders softened. New species reached the stars without fear of unseen extinction events waiting beyond sensor range. And slowly, something else happened. Humanity faded again. Not from memory, but from focus. They did not lead galactic initiatives. They did not dominate exploration. Their technology advanced, yes, but visibly, modestly, like everyone else. To younger civilizations, humans were normal, capable, reliable, quiet. Some found this unsettling. Others found it comforting. One day, a junior alien historian requested access to restricted human archives, those related to Phase 6. The request was granted without ceremony. Inside, the historian found something unexpected. No propaganda, no self-praise, no declarations of sacrifice. Just logs, checklists, calculations, marginal notes expressing concern for efficiency, error margins, and long-term stability. At the end of the archive was a single line, written by an unknown human hand. If anyone is reading this, it means we succeeded long enough for you to ask why. The historian closed the file with trembling hands. On a quiet human colony world, far from Earth, a child stood on a hill and watched the stars. To her, they were just lights. Beautiful, distant. She asked her parents why humans never built monuments in space like other species. The parent thought for a moment. Because, they said, we learned a long time ago that monuments attract attention. To what? The child asked. The parents looked up at the sky. To things that don't need reminders. Far beyond known space, in regions no ship would ever chart again, reality remained calm. No pressure, no hunger, no movement. The enemy did not stir. It could not. It was still there, but only as an echo, folded endlessly inward, guided forever by a single human decision it could never escape. The galaxy slept peacefully, not because it was safe forever, but because someone had stayed awake when it mattered. And in the quiet that followed, one truth settled across the stars. Humanity had never wanted to be remembered as saviors. They had only wanted the universe to keep going. And this time, it finally did. The universe forgot again. Not all at once. Not deliberately. Forgetting never worked that way. It arrived slowly, like dust on unused instruments, like moss on stone that no one touched anymore. At first, humanity was still spoken of with care. Older civilizations taught their children the truth, that the stars had almost gone silent once, and that someone had paid a price so they would not. Diplomatic protocols still included quiet acknowledgments. Navigational charts still marked certain regions as closed by consensus. But time does what even catastrophe cannot. It normalizes survival. New species rose from single worlds into the dark. They learned faster than the ones before them. They did not grow up afraid of extinction-level silence or unexplained gaps in the sky. To them, the galaxy was stable by default. Safe. And safety breeds assumptions. Centuries after Phase 6, a coalition of young powers formed on the far spiral arm. Their technology was elegant, efficient, and loud. Their ships shone with confidence. Their leaders spoke openly about progress, destiny, and the limits of the old order. They studied history. They noticed something strange. Every major crisis ended before it fully began. Every existential threat was recorded vaguely. Every catastrophe stopped just short of annihilation. And always, the records became unclear right after. The coalition historians debated it endlessly. Some argued it was a coincidence. Others suggested hidden mechanisms. A few, very few, pointed toward humanity. That idea was dismissed. Humans were cooperative but unremarkable. Their fleets were average. Their politics are messy. Their culture fractured and diverse, lacking the unified vision great powers were supposed to have. They did not act like elders. So the coalition searched for deeper truths. They pushed probes into closed regions. They experimented with space-time manipulation near old grave systems. They attempted to replicate fragments of containment technology hinted at in ancient, half-redacted archives. At first, nothing happened. Then the background noise of the universe changed. It was subtle, barely detectable, a shift in cosmic radiation that only the most sensitive instruments noticed, a pattern in gravitational drift that did not match known models. The coalition celebrated. They believed they had found something new. They named it. They published papers. They prepared to go further. On a quiet human outpost, far from political centers, an automated alert activated for the first time in generations. Not a siren. A ping. Deep beneath the outpost, in a chamber no one visited anymore, a system older than the station itself adjusted its internal state. Status. Observation mode exiting cause. External interference response. Awaiting human confirmation. The message routed itself through human networks that no longer advertised their existence. It reached scientists, engineers, and analysts who had never expected to see such a thing in their lifetimes. Most of them froze. A few closed their eyes. One simply whispered, "Already?" Humanity did not announce anything. They never did. Instead, small things began to happen. A research vessel from the coalition found its navigation data subtly altered. Not enough to notice immediately, just enough to delay arrival at a sensitive region. A probe vanished mid-transmission, its last data packet replaced by a checksum that matched no known error code. Coalition engineers assumed malfunction. They tried again. This time, a message appeared on a secure channel, so secure they were certain no one else could access it. The message was short. "Please stop." The coalition leaders were offended. They demanded to know who had sent it. The reply came seconds later. "Someone who has cleaned this mess before." That got their attention. They traced the signal. It led to human space. Outrage spread quickly. Humans? Interfering? Issuing warnings? The coalition convened an emergency council of their own. Voices rose. Accusations flew. Some called it a bluff. Others argued for caution. A decision was made. They would confront humanity openly. A fleet entered human-controlled space, not aggressively, but unmistakably. Hundreds of ships. Advanced. Bright. They broadcast their demands across every frequency. Humans responded with a single envoy vessel. Small. Old. Clearly unarmed. The contrast was almost insulting. The coalition's lead speaker did not hide their contempt. "You claim authority you do not visibly possess," they said. "You interfere with exploration without explanation. By what right?" The human envoy listened patiently, then asked a question. "Do you know why the grave systems exist?" The coalition speaker scoffed. "Ancient wars. Failed civilizations. We've studied them." "No," the human said calmly. "You've cataloged them. That's not the same thing." Silence stretched. The human continued. "You believe the universe is stable," they said. "That it trends toward order if left alone." "That is what the evidence shows," the speaker replied. The human nodded slowly. "Yes," they said, "because someone made it that way." The coalition demanded proof. The human envoy did not argue. They transmitted data. Not archives. Not simulations. Live feeds. The coalition's displays were filled with views they did not recognize. Spaces between stars where reality behaved incorrectly. Regions where cause lagged behind effect. Structures so subtle they had been mistaken for noise. "These are pressure points," the human explained. "Places where the universe still remembers how to end." The coalition watched in growing unease. "You've been stabilizing these?" the speaker asked. "For a very long time," the human replied. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" The envoy's answer was immediate. "Because the last time we did, someone tried to improve it." The coalition recoiled. "You're saying the universe is fragile." "I'm saying it's tired," the human corrected. "And it only works because no one pushes too hard." Some coalition leaders listened. Others did not. Behind the scenes, a radical faction accelerated their experiments, convinced humanity was exaggerating to preserve influence. They breached a containment-adjacent region, just slightly, just to test a theory. The response was instantaneous. Every human system that had been dormant for centuries woke up. Not loudly. Precisely. Human ships appeared, not from hyperspace, but from folded gaps that should not have existed. Ancient constructs adjusted position. Invisible boundaries reasserted themselves. The breach sealed itself before it fully opened. The radical faction's vessels were not destroyed. They were removed. One moment they existed. The next, they didn't. No debris. No explosion. No energy spike. Just absence. The human envoy transmitted one final message to the coalition. "We warned you," they said. "This is not authority. This is my responsibility." The coalition stood down. Fear spread, but it was different from before. It was informed. Humanity did not punish the coalition further. They did not demand reparations or obedience. They simply returned to observation mode. But something had changed. The galaxy could no longer pretend. Stories began circulating again, not as myths, but as quiet truths shared between scholars, navigators, and leaders who understood what restraint really meant. Humanity was not ruling. They were monitoring. They were not waiting for praise. They were waiting for mistakes. On Earth, in a city rebuilt countless times over millennia, a child sat in a classroom learning about stellar formation. The lesson mentioned instability phases, early universe chaos, and the long stretch of relative calm that followed. The child raised a hand. "Why did it calm down?" she asked. The teacher smiled gently. "Some questions don't have official answers," they said. After class, the teacher stood alone by a window overlooking the sky. In a private display only they could see, a status update scrolled quietly. Elder Network. Active threat level. Low human intervention. Not required. The teacher exhaled. Good. Far beyond charts and borders, the universe continued. Not perfectly, not permanently, but enough. Because somewhere, scattered across unremarkable worlds, humans watched the stars with practiced patience. Not as gods, not as rulers, but as the ones who had been there before, who knew what the dark looked like when no one stopped it, and who would step forward again if the universe ever forgot how close it had come. The galaxy might call them elders. Humanity never would. They were simply the ones who stayed.